This episode is sponsored by Launch. Are you an insurance agent that is tired of quoting business to try and find a better premium to win new deals? Are you looking for a way to differentiate and stand out from your competition? Well, look no further than Launch. Launch is an industry-leading software platform that gives you pre-built assessments that you can walk through with your prospect. Launch automatically calculates your prospect's risk score, and this allows you to show your prospect the areas you can fix to negotiate better premium and coverage with underwriters. Offer more value to your clients, turn missed sales into closed business, and most of all, become a better advisor to your clients. Visit getlaunch.io today to get more information on how you can use Launch to win more BORs starting right now. That's getlaunch.io to learn more.
All right, welcome to the Sales Process Series. We are really excited about this. And what this series is an interview with several different top producers in the insurance industry. These are folks that are absolutely killing it. They're over doubling their new business revenue over industry averages and doing it through a consistent sales process. And so we're having these conversations to pull out those themes that are really working for those individuals and really give them to you so that you can double your new business revenue. So enjoy the episode and look for more episodes in our Sales Process series. All right, welcome back to Getting Past the Premium, everybody. Today, I'm excited to have Mike Bodack on. Welcome, Mike. Thanks for taking some time to join us, man.
Appreciate the invitation. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so give us a little bit of your background and who York is and a little bit about the firm and things. And then we'll kind of dive into, again, we're talking about sales process. I know a little bit about your guys' process and things, but I'd love to dive into that as well. So
Great.
Who are you guys and what do you do?
So York International's an IMA company. We were founded in 1985 by a couple of smaller agencies that ended up merging together. Great Bay Brokerage and Paul Cranz & Company. We're 75 employees approximately and 35 million of recurring revenue, commissions and fees. We're located in Harrison, New York. That's Westchester County for those in the know, and just north of New York City, and very much considered a city agency. My road to being at York was, like most folks in the insurance business, a little mixture of serendipity and accident.
Everybody.
I got started in the life insurance business. My dad was a life insurance agent and is for the past, call it 50 years. And when I graduated college, I didn't know that I could, really be an architect or a, banker or a, veterinarian. It was just sort of, the insurance business kind of, found me the same way it finds many of us.
Yeah.
Had some early success at sales, built up an agency, merged that agency with York, and last August we merged with IMA. So I'm the president of the New York market.
That's awesome.
Nice.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny you say that. It sounds like literally everybody in the insurance industry is, serendipitously, to put it your way, but just some way you stumble in and you never leave, right?
Yeah.
Which is awesome. It shows, I think, what is great about our industry, and there's so many different opportunities, and we love to have these conversations too, because, even you as another independent agency, we do things probably completely differently. We have different clients. We, all those things that are just, you can do a lot of different things in the industry, even though you're, competitors or whatnot. So it's fun to have these conversations and learn what people are doing. So, So maybe talk about a little bit your target, who are you guys going after from a client perspective? Give kind of that rundown, because I think that'll help frame up then from a sales process perspective, how are we going out and winning those deals, those clients, et cetera?
Well, I'd say one of the most important things that has made a significant impact for us has been specialization. One of our biggest specialties is real estate. A lot of owners of apartment buildings or shopping center complexes or industrial parks, what have you. We've got a substantial portion of our commercial insurance business in that real estate specialty. It allows us to specialize in how we approach markets. They know us. They have a good understanding that we know that space. It gives us an enormous amount of street cred with prospective customers because we're able to name drop a bunch of different contemporaries that they know
Yep.
and are doing business with. And I would say that our producers experience an enormous amount of success by saying we did this process that is sort of our sales strategy with these customers, had these kinds of great results, and it just creates an enormous amount of comfort and trust right off the bat, which is, I would say, a big competitor.
Yeah, for sure.
Not that that's the only. Sorry, good.
No, I apologize for cutting in front of you.
That's okay.
Was this something that you started at your firm with this specialty that you had in mind, and you kind of just, or how did the specialty come about, I guess?
Well, I didn't start it, but one of our founding partners, his Paul Krantz. Paul Krantz, when he started the insurance business, his dad, Paul Krantz, when he came back from World War II, he started two different businesses. He started an insurance business and he started a real estate business. And he had two sons. And my partner, Jim, who was Paul's son, got the insurance business, and his other son, John, at that time sort of took over the real estate business. And so I think that was probably the genesis of
Got it.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Right from its very founding and beginning. And Paul passed away a long time ago, but Jim's still here, and his son Andrew obviously is still very much active in our business. So that was probably at the core of who we were. I would say that we were a sleepy little agency for its sort of our original years into which go back to Paul goes back to 1945. But for many, many years, we were, just sort of a very, smaller market, smaller deals kind of business. We had some major watershed moments along the way. My other partner, Rob Kestenbaum, came into the business 1997. I joined in 2009. And those were, sort of leapfrog kind of catapult moments that really launched us into the next stratosphere in whatever we were doing, whether it was, our commercial insurance practice with real estate, our benefits practice, high net worth personal lines, some of our other industry specialties that we do now, et cetera, et cetera.
That's sweet. Nice. Yeah. We always like to ask that question of how specialties, get kind of developed, because there's two schools of thought that you hear, and it's usually what you're talking about, where it kind of grows organically, or the best ones seem to kind of grow organically. There are some people that try to, or when people think about developing a niche or a specialty, they try to like manufacture it, like, oh, I'm going to go target this, that does that. And we just find that that's usually a harder road to plow versus figuring out what you're good at, what you have a network in, and letting it grow organically. But there's both ways.
It definitely requires a lot more intentionality. It's something that we've also done that, and we've got some other specialties. And I would say oftentimes what happens is it's a little bit of a combination, right? You have a relationship with a business that is perhaps not in your core market. You find, and we've done this a few times. I'm thinking about staffing in particular. We do a decent amount of SPAC D&O business. So SPACs are special purpose acquisition companies.
Mm-hmm.
This very complex, arcane financial transaction for buying out private businesses. But it's a publicly traded company and needs D&O premium and tail premium the same way any other D&O placement would need. And what happened was we had a relationship in both those scenarios, whether it was SPAC business or staffing businesses. We had a relationship and we got the one. And usually we got the one by partnering with a wholesaler who had some decent, technical expertise. We had a relationship, a very sort of traditional kind of, marriage of those two. But what happened was you got one, and I was like, oh, this is a pretty good relationship. It's a good account, so on and so forth. And then you get the second one, and then it's like, maybe we got something here. And it sort of, you become intentional about saying, hey, let's target this business. This is good business. We've recognized either a weakness in the marketplace where they need what we do, or you just recognize that you've got a pretty good mousetrap that will yield a good either financial result for the client or a better service plan for the client, or whatever the scenario is.
That's for sure. Yeah, definitely. Love that. Okay, so then let's get into, talking about the sales process specifically. So we kind of know who we're targeting. Maybe let's start with an overview of your sales process. What does it look like? What meeting structure? What are you trying to accomplish? How defined is it, across everybody, just however deep you want to go. But what does that sales process look like?
Sure. It almost goes without saying nowadays, but I'll say it anyway. We don't bid on insurance.
Period. You don't allow that, or
I won't say that we never bid. I will say that it would be the rarest of occasions.
That makes sense. I mean, and I just pause you there. Sorry to cut you off. I didn't mean to jump in, but I know that you guys are more like solely BOR. So I wanted to make that point that when you say that, you mean it. Like, it's very rare that you're going to quote business, right?
The only time that we generally bid on business is if it is a captive marketplace that the client doesn't want to be involved in anymore. And the only way to start doing business with that customer is to find a financial solution because it's a direct writer and they don't honor BORs. So, use benefits as an example. If they're in a PEO placement and the only way to do business with them is to get them out of that PEO placement, then we will bid. But I won't. I will not allow any of my producers to do it, nor would I participate myself. If it was, hey, we want to get out of a PEO and we're picking you, and we'll see which one of you can go get the the better deal with in the marketplace, that would not be something that we'd be interested in.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
So once we've sort of established that, and I know that there's been a fairly significant trend up market over the past couple of almost decades towards that process, right? The market's gotten a lot smaller for the most part, even in commercial lines, and because of that, the function of bidding, that transaction, being able to affect that transaction, it's not really a difference maker anymore. You think back 20, 30, however many years ago, and a customer's access to information was solely through their insurance broker. And so being able to deliver, any kind of pricing comparison model was a differentiator. If you were open with 2 or 3 or 4 different markets for that particular customer, your ability to deliver 2 or 3 different quotes to that customer was a differentiator. And that mattered. And not to say that, that was the old bad way of doing it. That's just the original way of doing it, right? Like,
it's true.
Totally.
You'd have Liberty agents and all they write was Liberty, And so being able to say, well, I've got 2 of them or I've got 3 of them to look at, like, wow,
Yeah.
What's happened over the years is between, fax machines and not having to go stand, my partner Jimmy will tell me stories about how he would, got started, standing online, would go stand online waiting for the underwriter to be, in, downtown, in New York City, to be able to actually have the conversation to get the quote bound. So you think about the advent of doing business over phone, fax machine, and then obviously, the internet, access to information is no longer a differentiator. So, some brokers were very slow on the uptake to be able to do that. And some brokers were faster, and some brokers embraced that, that transformation to the point where sometimes they call themselves risk architects or risk managers, risk advisors, or the, myriad of other names that would happen. Our process is such that, we understand at the end of the day, there's a financial transaction that needs to happen, and your ability to be able to effectively, efficiently, and price consciously deliver that financial transaction to a customer is paramount. It's super duper important. But how you get to that financial transaction and the process by which you get to that financial transaction, I think, is where we try and define our differentiation. So are we able to tell a better story in the marketplace, right? I mean, our friend Larry will tell both of us 70% of all applications that are submitted are incorrect or factually inaccurate or are incomplete. So, like, are you putting your best foot forward for this client in the marketplace? How do you properly demonstrate that? How do you properly demonstrate the results of that? Those are things that if you can define really well, you're going to be able to tell a story that not that many other people are telling. And that's across all lines of business, all industries, anything. And you don't need to have 100 accounts in that specialty in order to be able to do that. You can leverage wholesalers for that information to be able to use that story. You just need to be able to be willing to do the work in order to be able to demonstrate that story. I'm going to collect different information than your incumbent, my competitor, and I'm going to be able to tell a different story in the marketplace. And as a result of that, of telling that different story, I tend to get different results.
Totally.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so true. I like what you said going back a couple of minutes just on talking about the transactional way of doing business and having that be centered around price and not talking crap about it and framing it from a standpoint of, hey, it's not that it's bad. It's just that's the old way of doing business and that there is a better way of doing business today. I really like that.
Yeah.
So
dude, we had I'll tell a story quick, Ryan. We had a producer that has since retired, and they were telling the story at his retirement party. He, early in his career, there was some sort of entity in Omaha that was doing like an RFP. And so he had a small plane, and he's from Kearney, the area that he was from. So he flew his plane to Omaha, got the information, and I think the carrier underwriter was in Lincoln. So flew to Lincoln and drove to the carrier's office to get there first before all the agents that drove from Omaha to Lincoln, this is in Nebraska, were able to get there to get their submission in by paper, dropping it off to the underwriter's
and he blocked
office.
the market.
And he blocked the market.
Right. And so,
but that's the differentiators, that he was quickest because he had a small plane.
Right. Talk about the ultimate competitive advantage, right?
Yeah.
Damn it. So you're telling me if we go back to the old way of doing business, we can buy a jet?
I'm not sure he owned a jet, but
All right. So, Mike, you started to kind of dive into what differentiates yourself and your firm while going through the process and the information that you're gathering and whatnot. Can you back up just a second and kind of go over what potential meeting structure looks like and whatnot? Like
Sure.
if I own a real estate development company and I got a project that I'm working on and you don't know me and somebody refers me into you because I need help. Like, what does the process look like from that phone call to I'm a client of Mike's?
The first thing, it's there's lots of different posters out there with icebergs that show this little tip on the top versus the big part under the bottom.
Yeah.
Looking calm above the water, but his feet are going a mile.
See all those like in old school middle schools,
like all of those different isms relate back to before the substantive part of any interaction with that client, we have to do our homework. And we have to do a lot of homework. And I find that by doing the homework, that puts us ahead of 85% of our competition right away. Clients can tell when you're winging it.
Mm-hmm.
Sophisticated people can tell when you're winging it. I mean, I'm winging it right now, but it happens.
We can't tell, but we're not very sophisticated. So,
our
listeners are very sophisticated, though, so I'm sure they'll pick up on it.
But if I come in to Ryan, to you as a real estate developer, and I say, tell me a little bit about your business, That's fine to get you through the first like 60 or 90 seconds. But if I don't start asking good questions, not like, what are you doing for risk management, right? Like that's the same question that 50 other insurance brokers are asking, right? I'm going to say, tell me a little bit about how many units you have, right? That's how he defines his business. How many doors do you have? If he's an apartment building owner, that's a question that is going to mean something to him that he can answer, right? If I'm going to ask him, tell me a little bit about the, the construction of your, is it fire resistive? Is it frame? Is it joisted masonry? Like, I'm asking him a real question that matters to him, sprinkler to non-sprinkler, right? These are real questions that will immediately tell him, okay, he's used to working with someone like me. I'm also gonna, and I know this sounds like so elementary, but I've had producers that I fired that I say, well, did you go to the guy's website? No. Like, find out who the controller is. Find out who find out who his general counsel is. Find out if his dad's in the business. Find out, let's do a little bit. I've got your website open right here to your team page. Right here to the team page. I'm looking at the team page right now because I did a little bit of research before I showed up.
Ryan, you should have got it updated. What are you doing? That's a little inside joke that our team page is not updated.
By the way, this picture's a little old on you too, Elliot. I'm not gonna. It's nice that you've gotten old enough to be able to grow facial hair.
Yeah, there you
go. So it's the idea of being able to ask.
He balances out our older partner. Sorry, you'll love that.
By the way, I don't know. I want to spend some. I can tell from the picture. I want to spend some time with Brian. I think that would be a lot of fun.
You would, trust me, you would.
So no, it's some fundamental things that mean a lot to these customers, where they're just you have to think about that half hour as to what's going to be the most delivery of value to that person in that half hour individual. This is not your opportunity to learn about him. This is his opportunity to learn about you. And you need to be able to demonstrate that you're going to be delivering value from the beginning. And he doesn't have to teach you about his industry in order to teach you about his business.
That's smart. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I love that. And I love how you were kind of tactical in there about the type of questions that you were asking and how you transitioned fairly quickly from what we call like more situational questions, high level BS to, let's get down and talk about specific stuff so that you can start to see if there's any potential issues and, how you can start to add value to a situation.
The number one, when I'm fishing, because I don't have like something to hook into, the number one question that I always ask is, tell me how your last pre-renewal process went. What questions did you answer? What conversations did you have? What did you do to demonstrate that you were a better risk than your nearest competitor down down the street, or the guy that owns it? Why is your building safer? Why is your factory safer? Why is your business safer? Why are your employees, better than the employees from the business next door or down the street or in the next town or whatever it is?
Do you ever take that conversation and then turn back around when you're presenting to earn his business and say, hey, listen, like if we do X, Y, and Z, we can add enough value to your company where we feel like we can better position you in the marketplace to go win jobs and whatnot. Like, are you spinning that back around to help?
It's a good question. I would say that I've seen and heard folks have success doing that in that way. And I don't want to, put the Northeast or New York up on a pedestal. I'll say that our customer base tends to be a little bit more jaded. And if you come at them with sort of a slick line like that, they'll get turned off a little bit. What does work, I believe universally, is I won't say it quite that way. What I'll say is, hey, I heard these 10 things. Because I heard these 10 things, I think these are the things that we can get done in the marketplace. And typically with other customers, that relates into a premium like this, a premium reduction like that, or so on and so forth. And based on your $800,000 spend, that means 60, 80, 100 grand to you.
Mm-hmm.
They're smart enough to figure out what they're going to do with the money.
They're connecting the dots then.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, so
Yep.
I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to say, hey, this has been our process. Or we've been able to, you know, we've done an analysis based on the story you've told us and the policies that you have. And we recognize that you don't have this. And the reason that you don't have this endorsement, or you do have this endorsement and it shouldn't be there, is because the underwriter definitely doesn't know this, or they definitely do think that. And that's not what, and that's incongruous with what you told me. So through our process, we know we're going to be able to get this done someplace.
Are you gathering any docs before the first meeting or no? Just that initial conversation?
Generally not. Our first, so to answer your question originally, we generally run on like a 3 or 4 meeting, you know, track with most of our folks, right? We'll have an introductory meeting. We'll tell them how we work in the marketplace. We'll basically explain to them that we're not bidding, and we won't do it in like a confrontational, like we're,
Sure.
Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear. We're not all that.
You can say whatever kind of shit you want.
Oh, there you go. So, we won't come in like that, but we will say, hey, this is our process. This is how we do it. And we'll explain our process, right? First, this is our first meeting. It's for us to be able to see whether or not we're going to be able to deliver any value to you. Our second meeting, we're asking a bunch of questions, specific questions about you, as if we were going to be going through a pre-renewal process with you about what our pre-renewal process looks like. We will collect some policy information either between meeting 1 and meeting 2, or between meeting 2 and meeting 3. So we'll collect financials, we'll collect policy information, we'll collect some underwriting ratables. If that's, if it's real estate, we'll go and start pulling, addresses and seeing what, publicly available information is there from databases and whatnot. If it happens to be a, highly automotive or people intensive risk, we'll go and pull mods and figure out, whether or not they've got DOL violations, blah, 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 or DOT violations for the auto, so we'll do all of that stuff in between 2 and 3. And then when we come back with 3, we're coming back and saying, we heard you say this, we see this, we think we can accomplish this in the marketplace, and we think there's going to be a positive financial impact to you. And we're going to define what we think that positive financial impact is. And it's now time to hire us for us to go execute on this plan. And I'll say this. I would say our success rate in actually executing what we said we thought we could do is not 100%.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But we're not losing. Once people have hired us to go and try and execute on that plan, they're not firing us when we don't execute on that plan exactly as we promised it. What's differentiating about that is we actually come in with a plan.
Yeah.
As opposed to, let's fill out some applications and we'll throw it at Travelers in Hartford and see what we get, Like that's a very lazy way of conducting business. And, we just took over a $100 million food distributor and we thought we were going to be able to, so on and so forth. We were heroes delivering a 20% increase. And, but we added this but they feel better about what they've got today. They understand that they were going to get a crappy financial result, whether they were with us or with the next guy, but they feel they've got better coverage. They feel that 20% probably would have been 30 or 35% if it wasn't for us. Yeah. We switched markets. We did, so on and so forth. And if you ask that person today, that CFO will say, we delivered a ton of value.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. And the planning thing, I don't want to overlook, because I think is so important. And what you said, the fact that you come in with a plan is a differentiating factor. I think people get nervous to your point of like, well, what if we commit to all this stuff and then we don't get it done, or, we drop the ball. And number one, obviously, if you're going to commit to things, you should have the appropriate processes and ability to fulfill those, but that's not always going to happen. However, having a plan in place that you've agreed to with your client allows you actual flexibility, because you can say, hey, we plan to do this in May, but this came up and that came up, because you guys had that, it got pushed back. We're going to try to get that done in August now. You have a natural ongoing conversation with them. And even if I mean, most of the time, I would say client plans don't all get done in the first year, second year. You start to push those things into future years. It helps you also, I guess, renew and keep that ongoing client relationship because you're always working on those things to help them, improve their risk profile or whatever you're doing.
Best thing you can do is not finish 100% of what you're doing.
Yeah.
You've got something to work on, but and it's not necessarily like, hey, like don't deliver. No, oftentimes the limiting factor is not us. These CFOs have got a million things going on. And
we were talking about that yesterday about how do you weigh this balance between bringing too much to a client and then being like, hey man, I'm busy right now, and you can hold them too accountable, or they're paying you a fee and they don't hear from you enough. So how do you ride that balance? And we were talking about, at the end of those conversations, if they're on a fee basis and we're working with a monthly or something like that, asking them and being able to go back to the plan and say, hey, here's our priorities 1, 2, and 3 for this next month. What's your sense of urgency on this? Like if you don't get back to us on these items, are we calling you in 2 weeks? Or do you not care that we're having the same conversation next month because you're slammed for the next 30 days? And letting them dictate that schedule a little bit so that you don't run into those scenarios where you're just either blowing them out the door and they're like, man, this guy's, I've never worked this hard in my life in insurance. It was way easier with the other guy that didn't care, or, the opposite. So
it's definitely a balance. And I think you hit the nail right on the head. It's a conversation. The other thing, I'm always marveled by people who are afraid to speak to their clients. Like they like you. They're paying you a lot of money.
They're trusting you for something.
You're not an interruption in their day. Don't make yourself an interruption in their day.
Yeah. Do you think that's an insurance thing in the old way of doing business thing?
My number one radar ping is when someone's afraid to speak to their client, they feel my own anecdotal, 9 times out of 10, they feel they're getting paid too much for what they're doing. They're afraid to speak to them because they think they're overpaid, and they don't want to remind that person that they're not around or they're not speaking to them that much or so on and so forth.
Yeah.
That's an interesting perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll ask customers, I'll ask prospects that, and it's not hey, have you heard from him recently? It's when's the last time you had a substantive conversation? Because people will check in or wish you happy birthday or, want to take you out for dinner or, whatever, golf or whatever the thing is, but when's the last time you had a substantive conversation? Or when they, I called the same, we took over this, I keep using it just because it's recent, it's $40,000, food distributor, et cetera. And, we took over the account on BOR. We happened to move the account. And I said, I want to check on Tuesday. I said, I want to check in with you today, meaning today, 3 hours ago. I spoke to the guy for 8 minutes. I said, are we delivering on what we said we were delivering? You have any feedback for me on the team? Anything like that? He goes, I really appreciate you calling. And I wasn't a half an hour where I had to dig in there or whatever. It was a quick check-in, and this guy, he heard from me.
Yeah.
Well, it does.
There's also, I don't know if you run into this at all too. I would say the thing that I would add on to people who think they're getting paid too much at the relationship is that they assume that business owner or the client does not want to hear from them on anything other than specifically the property and casualty package that they are hired to work on. And so they're like, well, if the conversation isn't about that and I don't have any new news, I'm not calling.
The best thing you can do is call a client not about that.
Yeah. We was talking, try to get to know them, actually build a relationship outside of an insurance company.
Any insurance, it's February 3rd. The best thing any insurance broker could have done today was call a client and say, hey, did you hear about that jobs report? Holy moly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What does that mean for you?
And ask a question. Bingo. Yep.
What does that mean for you?
Right.
I can't believe they only raised it a quarter yesterday. Can't believe they only raised it a quarter point.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean for you?
Yep. How's that impacting your lending and, the jobs, like rolling that into an inflationary conversation? And you can easily tie that stuff back to insurance whenever you need to.
So it's
but
different places, right? Glad I locked in that premium financing contract when I did. Or, hey, maybe, I don't know if I'm going to be able to buy the building that I thought I was going to build, whatever it is. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. And I think it's important.
That is peer-to-peer status.
Exactly.
You are able to make that phone call.
Yes.
And it gets the conversation broader than just insurance, which is really important when your competition comes in and says, hey, let us talk about your insurance. And they're like, well, that's great, but Mike talks to me about all this other stuff that's going on in my business. So are you going to talk about that too? And when they don't, it's a differentiating factor initially in that engagement that is a barrier to your competitors even having that conversation, because you've trained your client that our relationship should be more than just me delivering an insurance policy every once a year or every however often we're going to meet. And if all you're doing is having insurance-based conversations, you're going to run into somebody else that can have that conversation different or better at some point, because the market's going to change or whatever's going to happen, and you haven't done enough to really get to know your client and have those broader conversations, right?
I think we've all won accounts when we say, what's your relationship to the incumbent, or whatever version of that you normally ask. Mm-hmm. And their answer is, does a good job at renewal time. And and for the folks that think that that's all they're entitled to, that is just that's music to my ears when I speak to prospects.
Yeah. Taking candy from a baby.
That conversation gets summed up with
does a good job at renewal time.
And not even a great job, a good job.
No one ever says insurance brokers do a great
job.
Yeah. Good job is all they define until they meet us. Then they find out what it really means.
There you go. Absolutely.
And you'd still define it as a good job. It's just the bar's higher.
I define it as doing a good job myself. Yeah.
So let's talk quick about results. So, and I don't know if you have any data behind this or not, which we don't have to get into specific numbers, but just, you guys have created some pretty phenomenal results over the course of time. And just, anecdotally, how much of, your results would you equate to, having this type of a sales process and this type of a methodology that you're going through, to bring on new client relationships?
We really embraced the current sales process that we have today, I would say probably about 6 years ago. And that transformational process, that transformation to this process had a significant net positive effect on our new business written. I would say it also affected our retention to a lesser extent. Our ability to write new accounts, write bigger accounts, more boldly and confidently approach bigger accounts, because we actually had a process that was delivering value that we felt confident in, I think made an enormous difference. We wrote almost 22% of prior year book last year.
Wow.
So, and it's funny when you ask, when you ask your contemporaries nowadays, like, oh, how'd you do this? Like in the last 2 or 3 years, like, hey, what kind of year do you have? Oh, people puff their chests out. We grew 10% this year. We grew 12% this year. Yeah, buddy, like 9.5% of it was rate.
You're right.
Yeah. 10% of it was rate. So you're telling me that you grew like 2 or 3% this year, and it's like, good job. If you're able to, the metric that we often look at is percent of prior year book written as new business. And if in the last, I think it's 4 years now, last 4 years, we've been north of 15% of prior year book, which is an important number for us. If we're writing 15% of our prior year commissions and fees, we're going to be able to outgrow the national average. We're going to be able to outgrow all of our public peers. We're going to pretty much be able to outgrow our private equity peers organically, and we'll be able to weather any softness in the market if and when it ever comes, including losing I'm not afraid. Not that no one ever wants to lose a top 5 account or a top 10 account. But if you're writing 15% of prior year organic book, you have to worry about your largest account walking out the door, meaning the difference between you having a good year or not.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. That's awesome. Well, anything else that we haven't covered that you think would be worth, sharing about what you guys are doing to, the folks listening?
I'll say this because it's become it's actually become a thing. And it was something that my dad actually told me like 25 years ago, which was, in this business, showing up puts you ahead of most of your competition. And I've seen, not that it wasn't important at a time for us to be able to meet via electronic communication in some fashion or another, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, what have you. But showing up to a customer to sit down and have a conversation or have a meeting is a big deal nowadays. One of my producers just flew to Indiana, got on a plane for the only purpose of visiting a client, went and visited the client, came back, happened to do it same day, but could have stayed, like that matters to that 6-figure customer. And it's, we've somehow forgotten. I feel like most of our industry has forgotten that. They're happy to do most of their business via Zoom. And I think
it's different. It's not the same.
Yeah. You lose something.
You do. I think that's spot on. I'm glad you said it. It's funny how
that's a great way to end. Yeah.
Some of those, quote unquote things a few years ago that were just normal commonplace are now actual differentiators, which is weird. That
I was just thinking about that, Elliot. Last week, I heard a guy say, if you want to make a difference in the relationship, write 2 sentences. Don't email it. Don't type it. Don't pick up the phone and call. Handwrite 2 sentences. And like, when was the last time you got a handwritten note?
Yeah.
Like the old stuff's going to become a differentiator, not like the difference between somebody moving their package to us or not, but at the relational level, if you do it right, it moves the needle. Well, this has been a blast. Mike.
Awesome, man. I appreciate your time. I think everybody's going to take away a ton of stuff from this. I mean, I was taking notes as we were going, so you always know it's good conversation when we are. So, hey, man, I appreciate it. You guys are killing it. Keep up the good work, and we'll catch you soon. Have fun playing golf out in Nebraska if we don't catch you.
Thanks, fellas, and appreciate what you're doing. It's easy to do the job, and this is a second level that demonstrates an extra commitment to the business. So, congrats to both of you for doing this.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Take care, Mike.
Take care, fellas. Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to Getting Past the Premium. We are excited to continue breaking down barriers and finding solutions together. If you would like to reach out regarding anything you heard in today's episode, find links and contact info in the description. Until next time, have a great day, and let's continue getting past the premium.